Today is December 4th, and we've got a trade recap making $256.72 on the day. Partial profits were taken on a Bitcoin position that I had, and then I had just a day trade for $212 on the Nasdaq. So we'll cover the Nasdaq trade, then we'll cover Bitcoin as well, and we'll go from there. So I do want to paint the picture. We'll go to the trade recap, and we'll walk you through the timing. But here's the trade. So we were down quite a bit in the Nasdaq. I think we were approaching down nearly 2% here at the low of the day. And given the market conditions over the past couple of months, there was just no way that I was, well, not that there's no way. I'll consider the short side, but the way things have been, it's tough to look at shorts, especially with some of the massive uptrends that you're seeing big picture when you zoom out. So that frames me in the mindset of looking for failed breakdowns in big extensions. So we've seen well, let's talk about the 4-hour chart on the Nasdaq. Well, here's QQQ. So pretty big extension. This at the time was, a very large red candle, which was larger than what we had seen the past couple of weeks, the past month or so, right? Looking back to the beginning of November, right? We haven't seen too many red candles of that size. Now, of course, we could be looking at a breakdown that begins, right? And if we are, then, if you're shorting now, you'll be getting paid pretty nicely if you hold that short. Sure, but I don't do that. I'm shorting based off of a setup. So I look for my setup and I say, well, does this setup make sense to short? And I say, you know what? It does not, because, we're quite overextended to the downside here. I'm not going to short the Nasdaq after we're down 2% with that very extended 4-hour candle. It's going to need some breathing time. And maybe it ends up going lower. And my strategy tells me that, this is not, even though this is a breakdown right here, this is not the highest probability breakdown. I want to be playing when we have a consolidation, and then as we're breaking that consolidation, boom, like bigger time frames and shorter time frames. And bigger time frames, we're kind of just in a pullback. It maybe not. Maybe this thing is kind of gets sucked right back up and go to new highs. We don't know. And it hasn't been like, oh, we've been trending down, now we're consolidating, and now we're breaking down that consolidation for the next leg down on the bigger time frames. We're not doing that. And so that tells me that we're looking for failed breakdowns. So what I look for in this scenario, one thing that was a little bit concerning to me was the volume wasn't super high, and it was on the move down, but on the breakdown or the failed breakdown, it wasn't super high. But it's not I've been looking deeper into this, and it hasn't been highly correlated to its working or not from what I have seen, as much as I maybe thought it would, believe it or not, right? So what I'm looking for here is break down the new low of day and then not give us momentum. Like, don't push down. Like, if we're going to get momentum and this is going to go for the next leg, we would have seen a pretty nice move down fairly quickly in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes. It did not happen. We regained that level, and once we regained that level, I got interested and I actually got long here. And the way I play it is that, okay, I get long and I put my stop loss at low of day. So it's pretty straightforward. So let's jump back to the trade on the Nasdaq here in TradeZilla. And let's go through my executions on the trade replay feature, my favorite, well, not literally my favorite feature of the platform. So 9:59 Central Time was when I entered this thing. It's now 10:54. My final sell was at 10:47. So it was almost an hour. You can call it 45 minutes or so of a trade, which is, I think, on a 5-minute time frame for what I'm looking for, fair. I also got to take into account this may be a bit longer than usual 5-minute trades for me because I'll start playing this out so I don't waste too much time here. Here's a 1-minute chart, so you can kind of see how it looks like on the 1-minute chart. We had broken down, and then we're starting to regain that breakdown. Like, here's the breakdown right here at this 15,700, so 15,700. And then as we kind of see how we had that push, right? But like it just didn't follow through. There's no follow through on that breakdown. So like I was saying, it's like the time frame of these reversals, right? When intraday we've been going down, but then I'm playing a reversal back to the upside. The time frames, this is where I got in right there. Okay, see how we start pushing back up? I'm like, okay, I'm going to get in. The time from these tend to be longer trades for me because 5-minute trades on a breakdown or breakout after a big move or after a move, consolidation, then the next leg, those tend to be, I would say, 20, 30 minutes. And sometimes they could be longer if you're holding and, you know, slowly scaling out. Yeah, I get it. They tend to be pretty short. So these on reversals, they need some time to kind of work and to figure themselves out, is what I've found. Because, you know, you're kind of playing you're using a signal to pick almost a bottom, or in this case, a failed breakdown to lows. So this ends up being, this area right here ends up being, let me just adjust this to white so we can see it nice and juicy. This area ends up being that low of day so far, I guess. And then we never come back. So you almost have it. Well, you have an inverse head and shoulders setting up afterwards, after the fact. But again, I'm just playing my strategy. So my strategy would tell me to short this move, so like originally. But then when I look back at it, we're too overextended on the larger time frames, and we did not get followed through momentum. So we end up going long. The scenario where I would have not done anything would have been if we ended up sputtering down and like no momentum, not a lot of momentum, but we didn't regain that level and hold that breakdown level right away. Because we ended up doing that. Like we ended up holding the breakdown level like very, very nicely, pretty much right away. So check this out right here. Here was the original breakdown level that we ended up coming down to, breaking it, and then we held that. So on these trades, I even think too that like there's nothing wrong with even putting my stop loss right back. If it regains that level, moving, and I did move my stop loss as the trade occurred, moving my stop loss to that original breakdown level, so it saves me a few bucks if it were to reverse, and then I move it up to my entry over time as I start scaling out. So here is the 1 minute chart look of what's happening. And again, I traded this on the 5 minute chart, but we're looking at the 1 minute chart here. It's what we have in the replay feature. I believe I scale out quite soon after this push. So we start to push up. Let's start looking at this a little bit faster. Yeah, I was on 10x speed. I can go to 30x speed. So we start making this push up, and I believe I scale out. If we make a new high right in here, I start getting, yep, there's one. So I had 5, I guess you can call it lots, whatever you want to call it. I had 5 units on the initial entry. I sold 1 here. I sell another one, I believe, at some point, and then I had the last 3 come off at my take profit, which was the VWAP. Partially was the VWAP because it's kind of an area that I look for, but at the same time, there's the next sell. At the same time, I look back to the left. This area that we hit around VWAP lines up pretty nicely with this breakdown point, which is an area of interest. That's where I did the last fill. So we had some consolidation. There's some volume here. I like backfilling through up into that consolidation, because there was area that it acted as support for a bit. So there's some orders, there's potentially some action there, and that's where I took the profits. Now you look back at the chart of QQQ now, not only have we blasted beyond the VWAP, we've actually gone higher. So in this case, yes, I scaled out, but if I had maybe left one more unit on, I could be looking for more. Now in this case, here's the target was, looking for right here, pretty much. And that's where I sold the last bit. I could even look for the bottom of this consolidation, and that was a reach. But and that's kind of where we're at right now. Would have worked, but it doesn't always work that way. And in this case, you know, it's technically the inverse of my strategy. It's using my strategy, but just kind of an offshoot of my strategy, which is something that I've taken time to feel comfortable and gain the confidence via the data to tell me to trade this. And so we did today. So that was that. And we can get back out of this and jump back over to our Bitcoin trade, which I believe the Bitcoin trade, let's see. Yeah. So I locked in 44. I also locked in more yesterday. So actually, technically, this video should be titled Making More Money Than What I Did title it, because we have netted a P&L of 134. So I locked in 44 today, but on Sunday, Bitcoin broke out. And so I was sitting there watching my Eagles lose. And I was like, well, you know, the good thing is that I can lock in a couple bucks on my Bitcoin position. So I locked in about 134 total between yesterday and today on the Bitcoin position. I believe it's 40% out. I believe I sold 40% of it. So let's pull it up and let's see. Actually, I'm going to jump over to my main watch list and pull up my Bitcoin there. that chart I believe I have marked out already. So I can do this in TradeZella too, but I'm just going to jump back to TradingView because I'm here. Here's the look. I got in on Bitcoin as it was starting to break out here over, well, not when it was breaking out. I actually got in on Bitcoin, I believe, back in here after this dip got bought up very, very quickly. Looking for the breakout, and we ended up getting the breakout. It just took a lot longer than I maybe expected. Doesn't really matter. The chart's a chart, which if you're playing options, which was me, 6 months ago, a couple months ago, then, you can't play this if you're playing an option position on a Bitcoin ETF or something like that. It's tough. But when you're holding just the position itself, doesn't matter, right? The stop is the stop. It doesn't, no matter how long it consolidates here, I'm not risking any more money than I would have. Now, of course, there's opportunity cost, I guess, but when you're using now a prop firm, I'm not using my own money, and I don't really have to worry about not having buying power with the sizing that I use. I can just go and trade something else in the meantime. So not a concern for me right now, which is why we went with the prop firm. But yeah, nice move into the breakout here above 38K. It tagged 40K. That was my target, kind of a psychological level, but also now as we're pushing above 40K, where is the next spots I'm looking for? I have moved my stop loss, I believe, to break even on this, so I can't lose. But I'm looking for this high right here that we achieved back in March of 22, this relative high. That's going to correlate with this volume node right around 47K. Now, again, I'm saying things like volume node. Again, does that really matter? Not really. I don't know. But I'm locking in little by little by little by little, and then my positions comes off at 48 or 47,000. I'll sell the rest of my Bitcoin on the way up to that point. So if that occurs in the coming days, I'll likely get out of it. Now, could this go a lot more? Yeah, I'm not trading Bitcoin for, new all-time high. I don't know. I don't care. I've got some Bitcoin that I'm holding in a portfolio long anyway. And so I'm kind of exposed to it if it does want to go to 100K or whatever. I don't know. I don't really care. I'm just trading the setup that I see. And based off the risk reward that I have, that I had in this trade, anything beyond where it's gone already is amazing in terms of risk reward, in terms of, well over a 2-to-1 risk reward from what I was originally risking on the entry point. So loving that look. It looks good, and we'll kind of let it do its thing. So back to Surge Trader dashboard this is the prop firm that I'm using. So we can just refresh the page and see the current accounts, or the balance is up a realized 347. So technically that's what the number should say. But I realized 347, and then the current account balance is at 231 in terms of the current value of the account, because there are some unrealized gains. Bitcoin, and I have 2 other swings. One on Meta that may be getting stopped. It's very close to getting stopped out, and then the other one is on Adobe. So we're 35% of the way there to our growth target. Again, no rush, doing our little thing. This trade size, though, on the 212 on the Nasdaq play today, this 212 is a bit more than in maybe past weeks. It's just kind of like that little tiny size up. No, I wouldn't say little tiny size up, but like just a little at a time. I'm not going to try to make a drastic move because I don't want to do that. But if you look at the initial risk or the initial target, I was looking to make 251 for risking 105. So we ended up netting a P&L of 212, and we risked 105 based off my initial stop loss. That's a planned R multiple of 2.39 and a realized R multiple, because I scaled out a little bit along the way, of a 2.02. That's 2-to-1 risk reward. To me, let me tell you, if I can consistently do that with a 50% win rate, I don't care. Those are great numbers to me and how I trade. Everyone's different. But how I trade, if I have a 50% win rate and I'm realizing a 2R on my trades, meaning I make $2 for every dollar that I risk, with a 50% win rate, that's a very profitable strategy, and I think very sustainable mentally and also just execution-wise. So that's today's trade recap. I'll leave links to TradeZella, the platform that we use to do all this tracking, down below. I called this I titled it a failed breakout, or failed breakdown, sorry. And then it was on the 5-minute time frame, so we're tracking that data as well. At the end of the month, we come back and we check in on this data. How are the 5-minute time frame setups doing? How are the, bull flags, bear flags, failed breakdowns, or failed breakouts doing? And then we kind of see, where we're at mentally. Does it make sense to make adjustments from there? That's why I would like tracking all this stuff. Thanks so much, guys. That's the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.